And very good evening to everyone, and I mean everyone that has joined us tonight. I'm happy to welcome all of you and my fellow board members and call the September 6, 2018 special school board meeting to order. Whether you are in attendance here or watching from another location, my colleagues and I are pleased you took the time to join us. We do appreciate and applaud your commitment to partnering with us in support of our schools, our students, our staff, and our community. And while the board and Brevard Public Schools staff members are fully committed to doing our best to ensure excellence in Brevard Public Schools, we know that our success can only be measured and based on a heavily engaged and committed community to work alongside us and help us continually improve. Thank you for being active participants in this process. Pam, roll call, please.
Mrs. Belford?
Present.
Mr. Craig?
Present.
Mrs. Deskovich?
Present.
Mr. Susan?
Present.
And Mr. Ziegler?
Present.
This evening, Matt Reed, Assistant Superintendent of Government and Community Relations, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to offer my fellow board members and Dr. Mullins the opportunity to recognize students, staff, or members of the community. I'd like to start anywhere. Mr. Ziegler? Anything?
Nothing.
Ms. Belford?
Nothing.
Mr.
Go.
Ms. Deskovich? Mr. Susan?
Go.
What's that mean?
No, I'm ready. Go ahead. I'm good.
You're good? All right. And with no one here, we will wait till, I think, the 11th to hit a lot of those. How about you, Dr. Mullins? All right, thank you. That brings us to the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Mullins.
Mr. Craig and members of the board, tonight's agenda is brief. We have one resolution and 3 consent items. You also have the yellow supplemental agenda, which are changes made to the agenda since being released to the public. Item C6 on resolution requesting regulatory standards and testing for PFAS compounds is an addition.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Belford, seconded by Ms. Susan. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
I think you did.
Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins, will you please let us know about the resolution?
Tonight's resolution is to recommend the following. 1, that the Florida Department of Environmental Protection develop state standards for PFAS compounds for drinking water, irrigation, recreational water use, and fish consumption. And 2, that the state of Florida conduct groundwater, water body, and fish testing for PFAS compounds to ensure the safety of the public. Before you vote, I request that the resolution is read into record. Mr. Reed.
Again, this is a resolution of the School Board of Brevard County, Florida, concerning the persistence and proliferation of perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl compounds in the environment and the human body. Whereas state and local governments throughout the United States are finding that per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, have become significant sources of groundwater pollution that can affect drinking water, irrigation sources, and adjacent water bodies. And whereas PFAS compounds are a group of man-made chemicals that include PFOA, PFOS, GenX, and many other chemicals, which have been manufactured and used in a variety of industries around the globe, including the United States, since the 1940s. And these chemicals, since they are persistent in the environment and in the human body, can lead to adverse human health effects. And whereas the Department of Defense issued a report dated March 2018 entitled Addressing PFOS and PFOA by Maureen Sullivan, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, which identified PFOS and PFOA compounds in a number of military installations around Florida, including Patrick Air Force Base and Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. And whereas Patrick Air Force Base has sites with concentrations of PFOS and PFOA of 71 parts per trillion to 4.3 million parts per trillion, And the Air Force Station has sites with concentrations of PFOS and PFOA of 74 parts per trillion to 53,000 parts per trillion. And whereas the city of Satellite Beach, at the request of several community members, undertook testing of the city's groundwater for PFOA and PFOS on 3 monitoring wells, which showed results ranging from 23 parts per trillion to 43 parts per trillion. And whereas the city of Cocoa Beach also received numerous requests for groundwater testing for PFOS and PFOA compounds, and tested 5 existing well locations, which showed results ranging from 130 parts per trillion to 430 parts per trillion. And whereas Brevard County also received numerous requests for groundwater testing for PFOS and PFOA compounds, and tested 4 existing well locations, which showed results ranging from 6 parts per trillion to 26 parts per trillion. And whereas the School Board of Brevard County, after receiving a request from parents concerned with possible drinking water contamination, tested potable drinking fountains for 21 PFAS compounds in their 13 beachside schools, which showed results ranging from 2.5 parts per trillion to 13 parts per trillion of pentafluorobenzic acid, or PFBA. And whereas in 2016, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency issued a drinking water health advisory limitation for the sum of PFOS and PFOA compounds of 70 parts per trillion, which is not a regulatory standard and has been decreased since 2009 from 400 parts per trillion. And whereas other state governments have set drinking water standards for these PFA compounds at levels lower than the federal health advisory level, such as New Jersey, whose state regulatory standard is 27 parts per trillion, whereas other state governments have set monthly, annual, and lifetime screening values for the consumption of fish, including a New Jersey recommendation of no more than 73,000 parts per trillion per year, whereas the differing advisories and standards and a lack of a Florida state regulatory standard is confusing to residents of our county and cities, and whereas the cities of Satellite Beach and Cocoa Beach, Brevard County, and the School Board of Brevard County are requesting the state of Florida to develop state regulatory standards for PFAS compounds to give definitive direction to local governmental agencies for both drinking, irrigation, and recreational water use, fish consumption, and for remediation to address the safety concerns of the public. Whereas local governments which have no influence, control, or authority to address these compounds now must respond to citizens' concerns and fears regarding the proliferation of these compounds in our groundwater and our water bodies, and need the state to respond to these areas for investigation and possible remediation. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the School Board of Brevard County, Florida recommends, 1, that the Florida Department of Environmental Protection develop state regulatory standards for PFAS compounds for drinking water, irrigation, recreational use, and fish consumption. 2, that the state of Florida conduct groundwater, water body, and fish testing for PFAS compounds to ensure the safety of the public. And 3, effective date, the resolution shall become effective immediately upon adoption.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. I'd like to offer the opportunity to make the first motion to Ms. Deskovich.
Thank you. I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Deskovich, seconded by Ms. Belford. Is there any discussion? Ms. Belford.
Just a thank you to Ms. Deskovich for leading the charge on this. I know it's something that's close to you, obviously, right in your community. But just listening to Mr. Reed read the resolution, obviously, it's a very, very complicated issue, and probably not something that you ever anticipated having to address, but we are thankful that you have. So, thank you.
I would add the same, and I appreciate you putting this in, putting the effort in. Obviously, resolutions are ways that we can elevate a concern to our legislature, and in this case, I think it's rightly so, obviously. And I thank you and the staff that helped put this together, because I know it took a lot of time and a lot of research, but I think it's well worthwhile to make sure that we have the standards in the state so that we know what we are actually looking at. So thank you. No other discussion?
I just want to
Ms.
say a couple
Deskovich?
things. I think it's no small feat that the city of Satellite Beach, the city of Cocoa Beach, and the county are also, we've worked collaboratively to pretty much adopt the same resolution so that we can present a united front to the state. And so I just want to give a public thank you to them and to you all for your support and, the time that you've taken to read and understand the problem also. So thank you.
Hearing no other discussion, please vote. Motion passes 5-0. We are now at public comments. Those school board policy limits to, let's skip that since I think do we have our public comment? No one?
That's the first.
What's that?
That's a first, isn't it?
I thought somebody signed
Since
up.
I've been here.
Okay.
Quick, somebody signed.
We are now at public comments, and there is no one signed up for public comment. So we will move on to the consent agenda. Dr. Mullins.
There are four agenda items under this category.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. Does any board member wish to pull any item? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to accept the consent items as published.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Belford, seconded by Ms. Deskovich. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 5-0. We are now on to board member reports and discussion points. Do any board members have anything further to report or discuss? Dr. Mullins.
I would like to share some very late-breaking news to the board and cabinet. We received from Commissioner Stewart just about an hour and a half ago. You may recall that we had 4 schools whose school grade was uncertain when grades were released over the summer, and we're very pleased to share with you that we received the results of that ongoing work with the state. So I'll start with Apollo Elementary. They originally had earned a C. We submitted an appeal, and they have now been recognized with a B. So very pleased for Apollo. Holland Elementary had received an I, and they now have been recognized as an A school. And Ralph Williams Elementary previously received an I and has also been recognized as an A school. And finally, Space Coast Junior Senior High, as their grade was withheld, they have been determined to earn a B. So very pleased to share that with you tonight, and Ms. Klein is anxiously, and Dr. Sullivan anxiously awaiting to hit the send button to our schools to confirm that with them as well, but I wanted to share that information with you.
That's outstanding. Thank you very much, and thank you for Ms. Klein and Dr. Sullivan for your team's efforts in pursuing those results and in continuing to elevate our standards. Thank you. And with that, is that all you have there, Dr. Mullins?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. With no other business to be brought before the board, the special meeting is now adjourned. The final public budget hearing will convene at 5:30 p.m. as advertised.